Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at providing goods and services. When we take a look at strategy, and that's pretty much what a lot of this is going to be about, is strategizing how we want to do and find our goods and services, how we want to run our company, what we want to take a look at. We're going to take a look here at operation strategies, strategic planning, the vision statement, a mission statement, and core competencies, the elements of affecting mission and vision statements, and 3 productivity measures. So let's start with planning. Planning is a basic functions. Managers do a lot of things, but one of the things they do is establish goals. They take a look at what you need to do for a time period and what we want to do overall in the big scheme. So we're taking a look at establishing small goals and big goals, short-term goals, long-term goals. They design the means by which goals are achieved. How do you find your goals? How do you want to get there? That's sort of like taking a road trip, and you can get there a variety of ways. What will be the best way for you? That's how they're designing the means by which goals are achieved. They communicate to achieve a common understanding of direction. If you take a road trip and it's a long road trip, you have 4 or 5 drivers in the car, and everyone goes to sleep except the person driving and sets out on a trip and he wants to go one way, that's fine, follow that route, etc. Well, then gets tired, wakes up the next person, says, okay, it's your turn to drive. If they don't communicate about the route that they're taking, then this person might go, oh, wait, we're not where we're supposed to be, and we need to get onto this other road, and we'll make almost like a detour, or we'll take time away to get to this other route to get to where they want to go. Second driver gets tired, third driver comes up and is like, oh, no, this is a third road I want to take. And it becomes harder to reach those goals, and you're adding more time on to get there. So you want to communicate what your goals are, and you want to coordinate the efforts towards establishing those goals. Everyone needs to work together, and you need to coordinate that. So if we take a look at the individual elements of a strategic planning process, we start with a vision. And we're going to be going back and forth with this in just a minute, but I want to go over a vision is where the organization is going. A mission is how the organization will get there. Our values, how will the organization conduct itself in its mission, and then the strategic planning. What are the organization's core competencies? This is what we're taking a look at. So let's start with that vision. It's an organization's defining statement about the future. Where do we want to be? Starbucks' vision statement is to establish Starbucks as a premier purveyor of the finest coffee in the world while maintaining our uncompromising principles while we grow. It's not exact. We want to be A, B, C, and D. It's very generalized. We want to be seen as a premier purveyor of the finest coffee. The mission statement is a broad expression of the direction in which a company will apply its efforts. We're taking a look at general terms that really help with our key decisions. What do we want our company to accomplish? What kind of company do we want to be? Starbucks' mission statement is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. Again, very generalized, but it tells we want to take a look and using our drinks, coffee and tea, we want to inspire people. Values. It's how an organization plans on conducting itself in order to meet its mission and work towards its vision. The values really define how you operate. So Starbucks values are with our partners, our coffee, and our customers at our core. We live these values, creating a culture of warmth and belonging where everyone is welcome. Acting with courage, challenging the status quo, and finding new ways to grow our company and each other. Being present, connecting with transparency, dignity, and respect. Delivering our very best in all we do, holding ourselves accountable for results. We are performance-driven through the lens of humanity. So we can take a look at the values, the humanistic values that Starbucks is relating that they want to have, that this is what we want our company to be like, how we plan on reaching our goals. Strategic planning in and of itself aids managers in the evaluation of the organization's relationship with its environment and establishes the character and long-term direction of the organization as a whole. This takes a look at taking a look overall at the environment and at the organization. So it's either a SWOT or a TOES analysis, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or threats, opportunities, weaknesses, and strength, whichever way you want to discuss this. And it's taking a look at where we want to go. Long term, where do we want to be? Where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to be in 10 years? And it's finding how we can do this. We need to take a look at the environment that we are in, both our natural environment and the business environment. And we need to take a look at our own organization to see how we can grow. What are our strengths that we can continue to work upon and our weaknesses that we can correct for? It might be a strategic business unit that we're looking at. If you take a look at the College of Business and Technology here at ETSU, we're actually a strategic business unit within the university structure at East Tennessee State's University. So it's a strategic business unit is a large diversified company that has multiple individual companies within it. So if you take a look at the different colleges here at ETSU, the College of Education, the College of Arts and Sciences, the College of Business and Technology, the College of Medicine, the College of Pharmacy, all of these are actually strategic business units where we have our overall university structure that we are under, but we actually have bits and pieces that we run ourselves. And so those are our strategic business units. And then underneath that, we have the departments within each college, which would be the functional levels. And lastly, we're going to take a look at core competencies, the specific ability that distinguishes a business from its competitors. And I just found a typo that should be from core competencies, specific ability that distinguishes a business from its competitors. How is your competitor? How do you differ from your competitor? What is it that you do best? Why should people buy your product and your product is better than your competitors? What is your core competency in that? That's what you're looking for. So let's go into strategies here. Strategies are a long-term master plan of how the company will pursue its mission. What general direction do you want to go? What are you looking at? What do you want to do? Long-term, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And why do you need to take a look that far in advance? Why not worry about just today? Well, if you're doing any building, if you're doing any restructuring of the company, these things take time. So you need to be able to look out into the future to see those goals, those long-term goals that you want to meet and the strategies on how you'll reach those goals. A corporate strategy is strategic planning and actions that determine the business or set of businesses that a company will be in. So what is it that you do? College of Business and Technology here at East Tennessee State University, ETSU, what do? We teach business and technology courses. We transmit knowledge. That's what we do, and we're looking to graduate X number of people with X number of skills who can be hired doing X number of different things and be good employees to do that. We want to train people to be able to work out in that workforce. A business strategy guides business practices and directs how it will deal with its customers, competitors, and conditions. So you want to ask at this level, who are your customers? And most importantly, what are your customers' needs, your customers' wants, your customers' desires, their expectations? Your needs, your wants, your desires really doesn't mean anything. It's the customer's needs, the customer's wants, the customer's desires. And I really need to drill that in to you that is the most important thing. Functional strategy, long-range planning of how that function will support the accomplishment of the business strategy. Well, the functional strategy will be the Department of Management and Marketing, which is a department that I work in. So our strategy is to teach certain business classes towards the BBA, the Bachelor's of Business Administration. So we have a set number of courses that we teach to make sure that the students know how to do certain items, operations management being one of them, marketing classes, and the accounting, another functional department, will work on the accounting classes with you. Finance will work on finance classes with you. So we're taking a look at these different areas and how we're all working together for a common goal, graduating students with a BBA. So we're looking to that, each one of us having our own functional strategy. Our goals in the Department of Management Marketing are different than the goals from accounting because we're two different functions. We do these through policy, official statements, expressed or implied. In other words, they could be written down policies that are there that you need to know, or they could be policies that are implied policies. And these policies guide decisions and actions of a company in consistent general direction, whether it's a dress code, whether it is a understanding of what you need to be doing, written down job description, those other duties as needed during different times. All of these are part of policy. And objectives. Objectives are nothing more than little tiny short-term goals. They're the steps taken to meet a strategy. How are we going to meet our strategy? So if your goal is to get a BBA, a Bachelor of Business Administration, and to graduate, certain time periods in that, you're going to be taking a look at each short-term goal. Short-term goals might be to pass each semester. So you need to get at least, your goal is to go out with a solid B average. So you're going to go, you want that 3.0. So your goal is to get at least a 3.0 in each and every single class. So if you take 4 or 5 classes a semester, you also have other objectives or smaller objectives to meet the short-term goal, passing the semester. And it might be to pass the class. It might be to pass the homework, to pass the test, to show up to class on time, to take notes, to read the book. You know, what do you need to reach that objectives? What are your strategies? How will you meet those short-term goals? I want to talk about the elements affecting our mission statements and our strategies. There are both internal elements in our company and external elements to our company. Taking a look at our environment, both the natural environment and our business environment, that can affect how we write our mission statements and how we go about developing our strategies. So taking a look first at external conditions, let's look at the economic conditions, the levels of consumer spending. How much money are people spending? How much extra money do they have to spend? And that's a pretty big issue, because if you're producing an item that people need, it's part of their basic livelihood, then during recessions, your item will survive very easily. But if it's something that is a consumptible that they don't need to have, they consume it and it's an extra, it's the perk for having extra money, then you have to watch out, because not everybody always has that money. So we have to take a look at what people are spending money on and how much money people are spending. Next is the number of households and growth potential in a target market. Who's in your target market now? And what are you doing with your target market to bring more people in? As people age out, die off, whatever they might do, how are we making sure that we have people in our target market to buy our goods or services? The gross national product, GNP, the gross national product. Looking at that, what is it? How is the country doing? What is the level of the GNP at this time? Where are you in the business cycle? Are you taking a look at introducing your product? Is your product growing? Is it the birth of the product? Are you in a growth stage? Are you at maturity? Or are you starting to decline and working at the death of a product? Products come and go. I was just cleaning my office, moving offices, and I was just cleaning my office, and I have a whole shelf of videotapes, not DVDs, not Blu-ray video cassettes. And I'm thinking, what do I do with these now? Because there's really not video players out there. Do I take and look to put them onto a DVD, onto a writable DVD? Do I just say, I don't need these anymore. This stuff is somewhere online. I can copy it off from online, download it that way. So products aren't always there. They change. We have the birth of a product where you're taking a look at the product development, the introducing it to the consumers, trying to gain that target market into your customer base, working through that, going into the growth and maturity till finally the decline and the death. And depending on what the product is, it might be a very slow move through the product life cycle, or it could be a very quick one. What are interest rates? That's the next one under external and economic conditions. What are the interest rates? Interest rates are important because borrowing money for either for the consumer to buy your product or you to increase your business depends on business rates. The higher the rates, the less likely you are to borrow money, or that consumers are likely to borrow money if you have a high ticket item. What's the employment level? As you learn in economics classes, there's a natural unemployment level. That's actually good. And we'll talk about that more when we talk about location. But there's also the idea that you have to have people who are buying your product employed, because if they don't have a job, they don't have extra money and they're just getting their necessities. So we're taking a look at how employment levels matter. Next in external conditions are the political conditions. When you take a look at political conditions, you have to be very careful because we're taking a look globally now. Tariffs. What are the taxes? Tariffs are taxes. What is the tax or the duty that you have to pay the government? Both where bringing product in, raw materials into this country, or going to another country with a finished good. Is there tariffs that you have to be careful of? Or is there no tariffs between certain areas? And that's where we have our trade agreements. Foreign trade restrictions. What can you send to other countries? What can you bring into our countries? Or is there restrictions on that? When you take a look at your product and where you want to sell it, you have to take a look at those things. Where you're getting your raw materials, you need to take a look at that to make sure that you're able to get the products that you need. What are exchange rates? How much does something cost here versus somewhere else? Is the dollar doing well or is it doing poor with exchange rates? That also determines political stability. Well, if you're thinking, what do we care about political stability in other countries? It's very important if you're selling your goods or if you're getting raw materials from those countries, because you have to be able to get this stuff out. And if you have political unrest, you might not be able to get your raw materials to produce your product. So you have to be careful of that. Government budgets. Why are government budgets important? Well, who do you think maintains roads? That's part of the government budget process. And if you're taking a look at the upgrades on roads, years ago, and too many to count on my fingers at this point, I was up in Minneapolis and Minnesota, and I left on a Sunday, and it was either Monday or Tuesday, the bridge that I drove over to come home collapsed. What's the infrastructure like? Do you have roads collapsing? Do you need to take a look at that? Very important. Labor practices, unions, non-union, organized labor, whether it's a union or not. These are all things that you need to take a look at what's going on. Environmental policies. Do you have to be concerned about the environment? And with your production, what is your waste? Do you have smoke that you're letting off? A heat? Are you letting something out into the water? Do you need to take these things into consideration? Social conditions. What are lifestyles like? How do they change? Life today is a lot different than when I was a kid. What do people do with their leisure time? What do they spend money on to do? That conspicuous spending. Where are they spending their extra money? Is it to go on a trip and travel? Is it to do stuff? The word staycation was not a word When I was growing up, there was no such thing. You either went on a vacation and left the house, or you stayed home and you did something around the house. It was not called a staycation. But that's something that is very common today that you hear. What are fitness trends? What are people doing? And other trends in society, and how do things change? Technical conditions. New products, technologies, new processes, automations, robotics. I am amazed. I have a friend who is a surgical nurse and works in the robotic surgical unit at the hospital. So they're doing surgery using robots and people. Automation, how things have changed, how it has what used to be completely handmade, we're now doing automated processes. Something as simple as ordering food at a restaurant has become automated. What are the market conditions? What functions does your product have? What does it do? Does it meet the needs and wants of your customer? And you're going to hear this time and time again in this class. Your needs, your wants mean nothing. It's your customer's needs and wants. That means everything. You need to find out what they are and meet your customer's needs and wants. How will you distribute? Will you have a distribution center? Will you distribute everything directly to the customer? Are you using a retailer? What location are you in? Are you close to raw materials? Are you close to market? We'll talk about that in a little bit. Barriers to entry and exit. How easy is it? Regulations that are involved. Money that's involved to enter or exit. Technology that's involved. Knowledge. What's the cost structure within the market? Internal conditions. First, we take a look at the strength and the weaknesses of the company. What are they? You need to know those. We take a look at the 4 major performance characteristics. Cost efficiency. How efficient is it to produce? What's the level of quality? How dependable is it? And is it a flexible item? When I watch television, which is rarely, I like the cooking shows, and Alton Brown is one of my favorite people to watch on TV. And he talks about never having a single-use item in your kitchen. If it can only do one thing, get rid of it. It's not worth it. You need to have items that are flexible in your kitchen that can be used for multiple things. Otherwise, you just have a bunch of junk in your kitchen. So take a look at those with your product or with your service. What's the quality level? How dependable is it? Go back to that value ratio when you think about these things also. Recall productivity definition. The measurement of value creation calculated as a ratio of the value of output to input. So we have our productivity definition is output to input. And we're going to be using that multiple places here so that we can understand. And with our value ratio also, how much does it cost to produce so that we know what the monetary cost is going to be when we put it out to our customers. So we have output over input for our productivity. When you choose a production strategy here, we can make to stock, make to order, or assemble to order. What would be the best way to do it to make sure that we have people getting what they need and they want as quickly as possible and at the quality that they want? Value added, the difference between the total value of the outputs and the total value of the inputs associated with an operation. What is the value there? How much is it costing us? How much are we putting into it? And partial productivity measures, a ratio of a particular output to a particular input of an operations. A lot of times when we take a look at our value added and what it's worth in our productivity, we're not going to measure each and every single input because it just wouldn't make sense. So a partial productivity measure will measure that just partially. So let's take a look at our first problem here with partial productivity. Lanark Farms sells fresh strawberries, growing the fruit both in open fields and within long, clear plastic hoop tents, known as its tunnel operations. Last year, Lanark's 50 acres of open fields produced 25 tons of fresh strawberries, while the longer growing season under its 10-acre tunnel operation produced 20 tons. So we want to take a look at how productive is Lanark's open field operation, and we want to find out if it's actually more productive than Lanark's tunnel operations. Now, I have just a smaller listing of the information that we were given here, so we want to take a look and figure out what is the output versus the input. So our output is what Lanark Farms is actually selling, and it is selling strawberries. And we're going to measure these in tons. What is the input that we want to use on this partial productivity measure? Well, it's talking that it creates this using 50 acres of open fields or 10 acres of tunnel operations. So we're actually taking a look at how many acres of land it is, and that will be our input. So if we set up this problem, we have our simple productivity measures and the partial measurement here with our open fields versus our tunnel operations. Our output is tons of strawberries, which our open fields had 25 tons of strawberries, and our tunnel operations created 20 tons. And how many acres of land did that put our input? It took 50 acres of land to create those 25 tons of strawberries in the open fields, but it only took 10 acres of land in our tunnel operations. So we take a look at our measure, output to input, and for our open fields, it is 25 divided by 50, 25 tons of strawberries divided by 50 acres of land, which gave us 0.5 tons per acre. Our tunnel operations takes a look at 20 tons of strawberries divided by the 10 acres of land, or it gets 2 tons per acre. So if we look at this, what is the productivity for the open fields productions? It's a half a ton, 0.5 tons per acre. And how does it measure up against the tunnel operations? Not that well. Our tunnel operations is able to do 20 tons per acre. On a multi-productivity measure, it's a ratio of a particular output to the combined value of a set of inputs in an operation. Almost always in a multi-factor productivity measure, you will be using a monetary base here. We're going to take a look at costs. So if we take a look at the next problem under multi-factor productivity, one key to the productivity of Lanark's tunnel operation is the higher air temperatures under the plastic tents, extending the length of the growing season, but making the plants more vulnerable to disease. As a result, Lanark spends $225 per acre for preventative chemical treatments in its tunnel operations, whereas it spends only $20 per acre for its open fields. The tunnel operation costs $250 per acre to construct and maintain throughout the year. All Lanark strawberries require $125 per acre to plant and $600 per ton to harvest and pack. We want to find out how productive is Lanark's open field operation, and is it more productive than its tunnel operations? Now, we're looking here at acres and tons to pack and how long the tunnel operation is per acre and how much that costs. So we're taking a look at variety of things. So the best way to do it is to put it down to a monetary basis. So we still have the problem on the right, the left, and the questions on the right. What is the output? Again, we're still looking at how many tons of strawberries they have. And what are our inputs? Well, there's a lot of inputs here. So we realize that they have more susceptible to disease under the tunnel, but we have on both a preventative chemical treatment. So what are our inputs? Our chemical treatment, $225 per acre or $20 per acre here. We have to construct and maintain the tunnel operations. So we have our tunnel operations, which of course the open fields is going to have a zero charge on that because they're not operating in the open fields. We need to plant. So we have planning costs that we need to take a look at, and then we need to harvest and pack. So we're looking at harvesting and packing also as inputs. Now again, we're talking about chemical treatments and lengths of tunnels and planning costs and harvesting costs. They're all different, so let's get it down into monetary units to put this all together. It would be the easiest way to take a look at it. So if we do that, we have our operations, the open air fields versus the tunnel, the chemical treatments at the cost per acre, the tunnel expense at the cost per acre, and if you notice, open air fields, it's zero, the planning at the cost per acre, and the harvesting and packing at the cost per ton. So we take a look and we figure out the math for each one of these based on our problem, and we end up with 25 tons of strawberries being divided by our input cost of, for our open air fields, $22,250, which gives us 0.00112. The tunnel is the 20 tons of strawberries divided by our input cost of $18,000 at 0.00111. These are tons of strawberries per dollar. So how many tons of strawberries per dollar is what we are looking at here. So looking at that, 0.00112 is just that little bit more strawberries per dollar than the 0.00111 for the tunnel operations. So you are doing more strawberries, tons of strawberries per dollar in the open fields, but it's almost pretty much a negligible difference because that is such a tiny amount. So looking at that, we've looked at productivities, again, our outputs divided by our inputs, to get an idea on if our strategies are working, if we're meeting our strategies, if this is a good strategy or if a different strategy, open air fields versus tunnel operations in this question, which one would be better, to give you an idea on how you're taking a look how strategies work. This is the end of this section, and we're going to go on to decision making in just a moment.